Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. A very warm welcome, and thank you for joining us on Café New Canadians. Café New Canadians is your virtual live chat where we bring you conversations, information about employment and other important issues to you newcomers in Canada. Now, Café New Canadians is brought to you by New Canadians TV. TV and web series that brings you information on settlement, employment, and other related issues. You can watch us on Omni Television if you're in Canada. And if we also have a YouTube channel, and we also have our website, newcanadians.tv. On our website, I want to remind you that we recently introduced in an International Students Corner. Now, that is new, and we'll be bringing you so much information about international students, issues of international students, and all the things you must look out for. So do be sure to watch us on Omni Television. Be sure to join us on YouTube, on youtube.com/New Canadians. And today on our live chat, we are going to be talking about strategies and tips for international students affected by COVID-19. My name is Gertrude Tumusime, and I'm very delighted today to host Boris Remes. Boris Remes is a best-selling author, a speaker, and an entrepreneur. He is an education marketer. He will tell you more about himself. But Boris, I would like to welcome you to the show today. Welcome.
Thank you, Trudy, for hosting me today.
How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I remember I told you that Boris is an author. He recently published a book, Start Right, Success Habits for International Students in Canada. And yes, and he will be telling us more about that book, and we certainly look forward. Now, today we're going to be discussing tips and strategies for international students affected by COVID-19. We understand that this time is very hard for many of us, honestly, and we hope that you are staying home and staying safe. And it has affected us in so many ways. For international students, it must even be worse because you're miles away from home. You do not have family here. You probably do not have your friends to cling on because they're also in their homes. How are you keeping up? You're so affected. You do not know what next with my education. You know, you're so affected. What can I do during this time? For all those questions, I can assure you that Boris is here to give you strategies and tips of how you are going to go about it and be able to come out of this time very victorious and continue with your studies and success in Canada. I do remind you that you can send in your questions. If you're watching us on Zoom, you can send your questions in the Q&A tab. And if you're watching us on YouTube, do put your questions in the comment section, and Boris will be answering those questions later in the session. Hey, Boris, let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Yes. I saw people were joining us from different places, from Mississauga, from Toronto, maybe some from outside Canada, future international students. And you're all welcome wherever you're watching from. We're glad you could join us today. Boris, I understand that yourself, you came to Canada as an international student at the age of 16. Can you please tell us a little bit more about your experience coming to Canada then and how you have grown into this field and now helping thousands of students to progress and become successful in Canada?
Thank you, Trudy, for asking. This is what's really important to me. I feel that it's my life mission to share my knowledge, my wisdom with others, so they don't waste time figuring out things on their own. My journey to Canada started with a one-way ticket from Kazakhstan all the way to Canada for the purpose of pursuing a better life. My parents really believed in the value of Canadian education and knew that the society is welcoming and offers tremendous opportunity for graduates to integrate, to adapt, and to be successful in this country. But when you come to a new environment, there are always challenges. And the first challenge that I faced was being misjudged as an international student. I was misjudged based on my accent. I was misjudged based on my appearance, and it was very, very difficult. And actually, shortly after,
who was misjudging you? Your fellow students, or who was that?
I went to a store and I asked for a store manager to to give me information about jacuzzi, about a hot tub. My dad at that time was running a fitness center, and he wanted to know a little bit more about the technology that is available in North America and whether there is a possibility of importing it into Kazakhstan. So I went to the store. I tried to explain myself in my broken English. And it didn't go very well. The manager got very frustrated, and he thought that I'm a kid of a mafia man, and he didn't really want to deal with me. So that was very difficult. I was very popular in the beginning, but shortly after, I was chased by a gang, threatening me with ugly words and asking me, telling me to get out of this country. And it was very frustrating. And I really didn't know what to do. I had no choice than to come back to the school the next day. I was crying. I had to come back to the school the next day. And really, I had two choices. I could kind of tuck a tail between my legs and quit and say, this is not for me. Canada is not welcoming. I should go back to Kazakhstan. I should go back to my parents. Or I had to figure out things, and I did figure out. I chose the path of being a successful graduate and persevere, and figuring out the different frameworks and tools and mindset to get to where I am at right now. I graduated from with a bachelor's of commerce from the University of British Columbia. And then I have a master's of business administration with distinction from the Schulich School of Business at York University, both top business schools in Canada and among the best ones in the world. And this really the education allowed me to set myself up for success professionally as well. For the last over 10 years, I worked in education. I recruited students from around the world to come and study in Canada. I helped them get in. I supported them during their integration process and also guided them towards job transition. And that's very fulfilling. Many have asked about my strategies, my tips, my frameworks, which I shared widely. And more recently, just a couple of months ago, I realized, well, if this helps people, it helped me, it helps other people, I should invest my time in writing a book. So I sat down, I put my best knowledge, my best stories and experiences into this book, which I feel will really help many more international students who are currently here or who are on their way to Canada to benefit from my wisdom.
Thank you so much, Boris. Your story is so inspiring and certainly is the story of many of the international students out there. But I would like you to share with us, of course, you will share with us more about the book later in this webinar, but I would like for you to tell us, why are international students so important to the economy and the society here in Canada?
Yeah, I think there are a number of reasons to this, right? Why international students are very important. First and foremost, they're future immigrants, they're future taxpayers, they're future citizens, they're future ambassadors for Canada around the world. And it's so important. There's this piece. There's also a very important economic piece to it. And international students, there's over 640,000 international students in Canada, which contribute over $21 billion to the Canadian economy. And that's very, very important as well. And I think this is a very important group of stakeholders in our country, and at the same time they're very vulnerable. They do need to have additional support and additional guidance so they adapt well and they will become successful.
Okay, thank you. So, what are some of the strengths that international students have, and what are some of the weaknesses that they had?
Yeah, I think the biggest strength that international students bring is the fact that they are adaptable. I think adaptability is a very, very important quality. At some point in time during one of my interviews, somebody asked me a tricky question, and that question was, if I were to be an animal, what type of animal I would be. And so my answer was, I'm a chameleon. I think chameleon possess a natural quality of being adaptable to the environment they are placed in. And I think that's what international students possess. They go through a process of integrating, but the fact that they're adaptable and they've gone through the process of adapting to a new environment, the ones who are already here, is a huge asset. And it's an asset that they should use to their advantage, especially in the times like now, when everything is changing. It's a new reality, it's a new norm. And as the result, they should use this inner strength within them to adapt to what's happening right now and really benefit.
Okay, thank you so much, Boris. You've talked about this time, and we have talked about it over and over again. I think many people are tired of being in the house, like myself. You know, maybe for some international students, classes have totally been put to a standstill. Some of them are still attending classes online, which wasn't the norm before, you know. And so what tips and strategies can you share for international students being affected by COVID-19 in all areas of their lives, mentally, physically, socially, and all areas around their success in Canada?
I think it's an excellent question, Trudy. That's the core of what I want to get to. But before I do that, I want to come back to your previous question and really talk about the weaknesses, because without knowing the weaknesses, it's the strategies and tips won't be very practical, let's put it this way. So let's talk for a second about the weaknesses. And so when I think about the weaknesses of international students, and I think that there is a strength, but the biggest weakness that international students have is a lack of network and the lack of networking skills. So both of these are so important. And they're very similar to new immigrants, but for international students, it's particularly different. It's particularly challenging, but that's a weakness that they can overcome. And there are resources available to them. So one being LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is a phenomenal platform that allows you to build your network, to become a professional, right? And so when I talk about strategies around building a professional network, I talk about setting up a profile as soon as possible. I mean, if somebody is listening to us and they don't have a LinkedIn profile, they should do it right now. And I invite them, I'll take this opportunity to invite them to connect with me right now as well, because my network will become their network as well. And I would gladly make the connections and introductions when it's to the benefit of somebody who's looking for a connection, right? So lack of network and networking skills which put students to disadvantage. In fact, research shows that international graduates, first year after graduation, earn on average $10,000 less than their Canadian counterparts who graduate from the same universities and the same degrees. And that's problematic. That's not okay. One of the main reasons is the fact that they don't have the network and the networking skills. And this is something that they need to start developing now, right? By creating a LinkedIn, by sending the connection invite to myself, to yourself, to Gerald, who are on this webinar, right? To their professors, to their classmates. That's really the place to start building the professional network and putting yourself in the advantage position, especially now when you have some more time on your hands to go through your contact list. So that's what I kind of wanted to talk about, the weakness. When we talk about strategies, right? So now that was one strategy and tip. I'd like to dive into something that I'm super excited here. And I think I'm part of Toastmasters. And I think Toastmasters is another fantastic organization for international students to join, to work on their public speaking skills, to work on their accent. And these days, you can really be part of great Toastmasters through Zoom. So that's another suggestion I could make. And so yesterday, we were talking about a value of time. And I think now, when things are changing in the world, it's very important to look at the value of time. And so let me ask the participants we have here. So go into the chat and write into the chat. Would you like to know the value of time? Would you want to know more about it? So let's see here. I think some of the people.
Dennis says yes already.
Okay, yes, Dennis. Yes, thumbs up. Okay, who else? Perfect. Natalia's thumbs.
Okay.
Good, good. Oh, so many.
Yeah, everybody seems like they want to read.
Awesome. So we think we have an abundance of time, but we actually don't. And so I brought an important tool with me today. So let me demonstrate it.
We're gonna make some clothes today.
I think it might be even something better. So I have a measurement tape which I got from Dollarama for $1 today, and I think it will serve as a tremendous purpose today. So what gets me very, very frustrated and very passionate when I hear students say that they have too much time on their hands, or they will figure out this later. So I like putting things in perspective, and I will use this measurement tape to put things into perspective. So if I look on this measurement tape, I start at a 0, and on the other end I have 60. So let's use these numbers as a representation of time and a representation of years. So when you're born, you're at 0, and 60 would be, let's say, the 60 years of active life, right? Within the first 60 years, you would take risky positions, you change jobs, you travel, you move to a different country, you immigrate. When you're older than 60, you tend to retire and go more into the retirement phase, right? And so I guess that those tend to be the norms. And on average, people live up until, in some countries, longer and others shorter. But let's say you have 60 years of active life, right? And so I'm 32. So I'll go to the 32 mark, and I'll take my other friend I have here today, and I'll cut off my first 32 years of life. So I have 32 and I have 60. That's the number of years I have left. And you might have it longer, you might have it shorter, depending how old are you today. But that's kind of put things in perspective, right? The value of time. Well, if I look at this, then, about a third of the time we sleep. And sleep is very, very important, right? So
very important.
Very important. Do you agree? Does everybody agree that sleep is very important? Go in the chat and write yes. Yeah, sleep is very, very important. I mean, getting 6 to 7 hours sleep is very important. And it's So I'll take about a third of this. So it brings me to, 41. So I took 1/3 of my life, which I will rest, I will sleep, right? So that's kind of brings the remaining of active years, right? And so on average, our daytime job, we spend about 20 to 40 hours per week working, right? Well, let's say on average 35, and that's about 1/3 of our remaining life. And so let me take 1/3 out of this. And so this is how much active years of life we have left, right? Well, hygiene is important, right? So we need to take some time to exercise, to go to the washroom, all the basic needs. And so in total, that would total about 2 years of life, right? So that's getting shorter, much shorter, talking about the value of time, right? Just putting things in perspective. Sometimes we live that we are mortal, but we tend to stress out a lot about money and other things that bring us fear, but we don't really stress out about the value of time, not as much as we should. And so I took that time off. And so in my case, I meditate. I wake up every morning. I meditate for about an hour. I like to go on silent meditation retreats at least once a year. So let's take 1 year of time, maybe 1.5 years, right? So this is getting shorter. Okay, well, what else? So let's talk about habits. So we have good habits and we have some bad habits, right? And so I have a bad habit. I like to spend my time online researching travel deals. So I spend a lot of time looking at how I can travel around the deals around the world. So on average, let's say I'll take a year out, right? And so once I find a good deal, I probably take another 1 year to 1.5 years traveling, right, in total. It's getting much, much shorter. And then, I like watching videos on YouTube. And so that might be another year. So this is getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. This is fascinating, right? And then, well, I mean, we're all in lockdown, right? And so some will have spent the last 2 months and may spend the next X number of months just watching videos on YouTube and putting comments and likes, and some are good comments, some are bad. But that is also putting things in perspective. And also think about the toxic relationships, and things that are not meaningful. What I'm trying to put in perspective with this exercise is that time is extremely, extremely precious, and use it to your advantage. It doesn't matter whether you're an international student or a parent or somebody who works with international students. Make sure that whatever you do with your life, and there's not much left, is meaningful. And what's meaningful for me is really impacting the lives of international students. So that kind of putting things in perspective around the strategy. And now, if I go back to, it's a few months I chopped off here, talking about lockdown, right? The time where we are in social distancing. What I want to talk about and use the few moments we have available is I want to talk about micro-credentials. I think that's so important for international students is to invest the time in getting micro-credentials. So let me ask our participants here, how many of you are familiar with micro-credentials or currently getting a micro-credential? So let's, if yes, so thumbs up, right? Yes. Okay. Yes, Dan.
Yeah, Dennis says yes.
Yes. Okay. No, Natalia. Okay. You'll learn something from me in 2 moments. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Yes, Josh.
Says yes.
Awesome. Micro-credentials are so important. I've discovered this in my first year of university when I went on and pursued a micro-credential in personal training. So I became a personal trainer. This allowed me to get a job in Gold's Gym and also allowed me to stay fit and in a great shape. I used to be in much better shape than now, but still. And so that was an example of micro-credential that allowed me to get a job and differentiate myself from being a business student, right? There are so many business students. And what I want to share right now is that what I think has phenomenal opportunity is a micro-credentials in Salesforce ecosystem. During my most recent experience, I went on to get micro-credentials in Salesforce. And Salesforce is a CRM, which allows companies to manage relationships with their clients and their customers. The governments use that. Many companies use that. And by 2022, there are expected to be 3.3 million new jobs created in the Salesforce ecosystem. And people can go on Trailhead and get their Salesforce credentials to really land a very well-paid job while working remotely. So that's something I wanted to share with everyone, because that micro-credential actually was the top hard skill that I needed in my job in Deloitte. I spent some time working in consulting, travel across North America, consulting colleges and universities on how to better support their students. So this is something I wanted to share. I'm really passionate about this, and I wanted to put time into perspective and invite everyone to invest their time into something that will position them for success career-wise.
Boris, where do we get that credential? Where can we do it from? If you don't mind, can you give some resources?
Absolutely. So you can go to Trailheads, and I will put a link in the chat. It's called Trailheads. They are free. There are Trailheads for students where you learn various skills through a gamified platform. And so you can learn marketing skills, you can learn you can learn diversity skills. There are a lot of skills that the platform teaches you for free, which is awesome. But when we talk about Salesforce as a technical skill, you can go through various modules to become a business administration specialist and a Salesforce architect, and you can go much, much, much higher in ranks, whether it's a technical knowledge or it is a functional knowledge. Let's say you're a marketer or you're a salesperson. You can acquire those skills for free on Trailhead's platform.
Okay, thank you for that. And these courses are, like you say, they're free and they're online, so anybody can really access it online.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm going to share this this link right now with everyone, and I think this is a phenomenal investment of time. So I just send a message to everyone. Go check it out and get your micro credentials in Salesforce as an international student.
Yeah, and what are some of those other things that international students, what are some of those other tips and strategies that they can exploit during this time when they're home, they're in their rooms and not sure of what's going to happen next? How can they make use of this time to ensure their success?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful question. I imagine that some people, when we exit the lockdown, right, whenever it happens, I think in retrospective, some people can look back and say, oh, this is the number of movies I have watched. This is the number of, I don't know, this is the things I've done while I was on my own, right? And others would say, well, you know what? I have gone on, I read great books, I have invested into my credentials, into becoming a better person. I invested in building my LinkedIn profile. I think that's kind of would be the top thing I would suggest is building your network and your virtual networking skills, as well as investing into micro credentials and publishing your micro credentials on LinkedIn to boost up your credibility. So that's what I would kind of highlight as one of the strategies and tips.
Okay, just a quick reminder that all the links that Boris has shared and all the links that we're sharing will be later sent to you in an email, a follow-up email. Now, Boris, tell us something about personal branding as a student. You earlier spoke about our weaknesses as international students and not being able to network, so how do I build my brand during this time, especially that I'm not in touch with people, or even to do with networking as a student? Like, how do I exactly do that when I'm out of touch with the rest of the world?
Yeah, well, let's start maybe by saying, by talking about what is a personal brand, right? So I think a personal brand is the simplest way to put it is that so personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? And so that's essentially the personal brand, how your friends, your colleagues will talk about you when you're not in the room. And in fact, you have the full authority to craft your brand the way you want it to be. Like companies create a brand for their products, right? And some brands are much more elevated and command a higher pay or higher price. People brands are similar, right? And the higher your personal brand is, the higher the amount of money you can command for your knowledge, for your expertise, for your personal brand. So it's first and foremost, it's important to understand what is personal brand and what is personal brand, not what is not, right? So that's where I would start. I think, and I think what's might be easier for companies have marketers, right? And they would look at a brand objectively and look at different KPIs. When you are a personal brand and you have to be your own marketer, it's a little bit more difficult to look at yourself objectively. The way I would look at this is that I would look at the final result you want to achieve, right? And let's not think about a 5-year or 10-year plan. Let's be very realistic here. Let's say, in the way I coach my students and families when I talk about this, I would say, let's say it's a year from now. So Trudy, let's talk to you, right? And it is April 28th, 2021, right? And Trudy, this was the best year of your life, the best year of your life. You have accomplished things that you haven't even thought you have accomplished, right? And so we're talking about a 1 year time frame. And then you go deep into your mind and you say, you know what, I don't know, you can, let's say I'm the most popular host for Café New
Canadians.
Yes, you would say, Boris, I had the best Café New Canadians sessions with 1,000 attendees, and it was the best thing ever. So let's use this as an example. And say, okay, well, this is where you want to get, right? That's your goal. And then you basically look at capabilities and tools you need to acquire to get there, including your personal brand. And so then you go through the process of understanding what do you need to do, right? You can work with someone, you can work by yourself, you can meditate on this and think, okay, well, what things do I need to do to have this personal brand so I have this accomplishment? That's kind of the process I would go through. And I don't think whether you are in the classroom or attending classes remotely online should be preventing you from building your personal brand. In fact, you're less distracted to some extent, but you really need to be focused and understand the goal you're pursuing.
Thank you so much for that. Boris, in terms of international students and the distance away from home, we know that many of the international students come from countries miles away, from their homes, and they're away from their family. And we know that this has slowly become a time for family, where people get to stay indoors, but also get more to bond with family. So it comes with an issue of missing family, mental health, in terms of people are getting depressed, people are getting very stressed, people are getting very frustrated because of the whole situation. They're not going to class anymore. Some of them are probably not doing their part-time jobs anymore. Are there resources that you know about that offer some services to international students online, for example, for their mental health?
Yeah, I think what I see, universities are investing heavily into offering mental health support, right? So I would start with, just to address your question, I would go to their institution, to their school, and make sure to take advantage of the resources that are available to them. So that's a must, right? Make sure you talk to someone about what you're feeling. And there is a stigma among the international students around mental health, and it's surely something that requires a much closer look, right? And I know universities are reaching out, calling to their students, checking in, making sure that they're fine, right? And so that's surely very, very important. So step number one would be make sure you get in touch with your advisor, talk about your feelings, right, and your emotions. That's very important. But at the same time, I would say the way I'd look at this is that we have two wolves inside of us, right? There are two wolves inside of our head. That's when we're talking about mental health. And we have our full jurisdiction, our full discretion to decide which wolf in our head we're feeding. Right? And so the food that we give to the wolf in our head would be the wolf who's stronger, right? And it could be a good wolf and it could be a bad wolf, right? And the wolf that is the biggest critic of yourself. And so when we're talking about the food to the wolf and your mental health, it's the choice that you make around the information you take. Of course, if you sit and read news all the time, right, and you can get depressed. So you have to be extremely vigilant and extremely selective what type of information you take in, and what affects you. What I think in life, I mean, everything is cyclical, right? And yes, it can be hard. It is hard for many right now. But the future is bright. And if we look at the history, right, if we look at the past, people have gone through many different evolutions, right? And so one would argue, coming back to my earlier point about the strength that international students have, it's within them. It's their ability to adapt to a new reality. Yes, there might be some short setbacks. Yes, I understand. But let's look at the situation holistically, right? And in some domains of their life, let's say financially or academically, it can be a downward spiral. But in others, it can be an upward spiral. It might be the best time for you to connect with your loved ones. I mean, I can say I am so grateful for the time I have right now to spend with my wife and with my child, which I've never had. And so I would argue that in this domain in my life, I'm an upward spiral. And I think everybody can look at their life and find something that they're grateful for.
Thank you, Boris, for that. And a quick reminder that tomorrow's topic actually will be throwing more light on mental health. And so you be sure to tune in and join that webinar tomorrow. That is also Café New Canadians, and also on LinkedIn. So you can go to our website and newcanadians.tv and sign up for those sessions for more on mental health and how to go through this whole situation. Boris, so international students are here. It's a hard time in terms of surviving. The fact that some of them might not be working right now, maybe for their part-time jobs. So what are some of those tips for survival during this hard economic time?
Well, I think it's important to define, the term of survival, right? I think everybody can look at this differently. I think I would say the reality has changed, right? It's changing. There are resources available, right? I think the issue is people. I guess the way I would look at it is that the issue is not with resources. I mean, there are companies that are hiring, there are companies that are striving. My brother works for an ed tech company, and now they're busy like never before, right? Because everybody wants to transition to a digital platform for learning. And so that's what happens, right? Some companies got much, much more busier and opportunities shifted that way. And other companies on a downward spiral, and sooner or later it would happen. Right? No business exists forever. And when some students lost their part-time jobs, it means that maybe that's a time for them to look for a job that is remote, right? There are great platforms like Upwork or Fiverr when you can become a freelancer and offer and sell your skills, probably at a higher margin as you build your personal brand for soft and hard skills you have. So that might be just another opportunity to look into. And so I think the issue is not with the resources, the issue is that people are not resourceful, and finding the right resources and accepting the reality. This is the reality. This is what's happening. Okay. Don't let the fear come in. Don't feed that wolf inside of your head saying, well, this is bad. The skies are falling. The skies are not falling. It's just you need to be resourceful and find the information, find the answers to the questions. So in case if it's financial, in case it's an income, then start looking for the information that will allow you to bring the income that you need to have the lifestyle that you desire.
Thank you. So there are international students who are either like in the middle of or at the end of their courses. And this is a period for them to transition, say, get a postgraduate work permit and start working, or they were in the process of really moving on with starting their immigration journey now, They've been suddenly affected. What tips do you have for such kinds of people in this kind of situation right now?
Yeah, so what we know is that Citizenship and Immigration Canada have brought in a number of changes, right, that allowing some form of hybrid education, so that's not affecting the postgraduate work permit necessarily. So they still have the opportunity to get the postgraduate work permit after graduation, which is a great, which is great. So that's what's happening, right? There is Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, which international students qualify if they've earned a certain level of income, right? So that's also very promising, right? And so there are many changes happening. I won't be commenting on these details, but that's something that students should pay attention and be resourceful, because if that's an opportunity for them, maybe an opportunity to advise others, that's in fact the area they should be looking into. I would go back to my earlier recommendations. I think build a personal brand, network, and build your networking, digital virtual networking skills, and acquire micro credentials in the time that you have will really set yourself up for success. And listen, one thing I truly believe in, if there are no paid opportunities right now, right? There's no paid jobs, go and get an unpaid internship, go volunteer, right? It's so practical and so important, and it will boost your resume, your physical resume or your digital resume on LinkedIn. Ask for recommendation long-term, right? Because we don't know how long this will be. I mean, sure, you can listen to news and some would say it's forever. Others would say optimistically. I was on a session earlier today, and Australia is going back to normal. The classes are restarting in July, which is very ambitious. I mean, in Canada, things are a bit different. I mean, everybody's looking at the situation very differently, but let's focus on what we know, right? Build a personal brand, network, acquire, get micro credentials to set yourself up for success.
Well, thank you. Certainly. Thank you for that. And let's take some questions from people attending. Boris Iris says,
okay.
As an international student at the University of Waterloo, I'm very interested in inspiring more international students. How do I exert my influence on more people?
Yeah, well, that's great. I would love that. That's what I love seeing. I think that's something I share with you, Iris, is that we, as current or former international students like myself, I'm now a proud Canadian, but as a former international student, inspiring international students, motivating, helping them to get to the next level is so important, right? And so there are different ways to influence, right? I think that the question that is very important is to, and I don't know you, but I think the question is, well, what's your superpower? I think that's a good way to ask. What do you enjoy doing, right? Why this is important. So it requires a little bit of digging inside of yourself. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with a coach. Please get in touch with me. I would love to have a conversation and see how we can collaborate or how I can support you, because there's so much that can be done in this space for international students, from housing to mental health to career guidance to so much, right? And so think about what gets you excited, what's your superpower, and then think about the platform that is most appropriate for you to communicate your message. And so in my case, I chose to write a book, right? It's an exercise. I enjoyed figuring out all the different resources and how do you get an editor and how do you self-publish and how do you become a bestseller on Amazon. All of that is something that I've invested my time, and I chose a book as a platform to share my knowledge, right? You may choose to do videos on LinkedIn. You may choose to do webinars. There's so many ways for you to communicate your wisdom. And I think this is so important, right? It took me 16 years to figure out what I know. And I think it's my responsibility now to share with others. So they don't need to spend 16 years of their life to know what I know. And I think you surely have wisdom, your experience, you had your ups and downs. Find a way to communicate that to as many students as possible, because with over 600,000 students currently in Canada and many more on the way, we can do a great thing.
Okay, we have another viewer on YouTube who's asking, what are your recommendations for international students looking to build their LinkedIn profiles?
I'm just trying to see. Sorry, would you mind repeating the question? I think it's...
Yes, someone on YouTube is asking that what are your recommendations? What are your recommendations for international students looking to build their LinkedIn profiles?
Yeah, I think... So I would start at the top, right? Make sure you have a professional picture. That's number one. You can get a good banner, right? So something that shows your personality, right? No, in my case, my banner is my book. In your case, it can be a skyline of Toronto. It can be anything else, right? So that's the second thing. Then look at your headline, right? Headline is very important. You can say that you're a student. You might look for an opportunity. So what's the headline for you, right? So for me, my headline is an author. Right. So that's what I'm working on. I'm an award-winning educational marketer. I'm a speaker and I'm an author. That's my headline. Your headline can be different. So make sure it's descriptive, right? So go down that. Then make sure you put your all academic credentials, right? So where you're studying right now, where you studied before. I won't put your high school, just focus on your university. So that's very important. If you have any awards, if you have any, if you're on Dean's List, entrance scholarships, make sure you include it in there. Very important. Then look into different clubs, right? Different volunteer and paid experience. So enter that information into the paid experience, into your experience section. So build this up, very important. What else I would say? One thing I think is phenomenal about LinkedIn is your ability to publish you publish articles on LinkedIn. And I think I'm grateful for LinkedIn because it's a platform that allowed me to get my foot in the door in the consulting world in many ways. And publishing articles on LinkedIn was something that got me noticed. So if you don't have an article published on LinkedIn, that's a great place to show your thought leadership. Pick something that you're passionate about. Maybe your future job description. I'm giving you an idea, right? Write a job description for yourself, your first job, right? You never know, maybe an employer will see it, right? So that's something I suggest doing, is writing an article. It might be something that you've already written for one of your courses. You just need to adapt it and really show your opinion about something. So these would be some of the tips I suggest you paying attention. There are tons of awesome free resources. There are a lot of awesome paid resources. Ultimately, I think in life, it comes down, either you have the time or you have the money, right? And if you have the time, you go and figure out, and you can go very, very deep and become an expert in LinkedIn, and then make money on this and promote your services on Upworks and Fiverr, or you can pay someone who can guide you through this process. It ultimately comes down how much time you have and how deep you'd like to go into this niche.
And Guo says that thank you so much for the insights. What is your vision for the next 5 years, and how do you plan to achieve it?
Oh, that's awesome. For the next 5 years. Oh my God. That's a phenomenal question, Iris. I think I look at, and I think I shared it with Trudy, the best format that I like looking into the future is a looking back, and I use a 12 months period. So I sit down and I say, well, what accomplishments I want to have 12 months, so let's say it's April 2021, and what do I want to accomplish by that date? And so my top line accomplishment is that I want to impact 1 million international students, the ones who are in Canada, the ones who are on the way to Canada, and former international students through my platform, right? My platform being my book and a few other things I'm working on. So that's kind of my vision for the next 12 months, right? I think that's one domain. I mean, if I elaborate, I look at my life holistically. I think there are 5 domains in life. Right? There is intellectual growth, physical growth, emotional growth, spiritual, and professional. So 5 domains, so 5 areas of life, we can call them, right? And so when we talk about professional growth, right, and that's what I said about impacting 1 million international students through what I know, through my knowledge, through my books, through events that I organize. So this is something that I believe in. And in my within my intellectual domain, I think I have plenty of academic degrees. Now I'm really going down the micro-credential path, and Salesforce is something I love and appreciate a lot. And now my time is spent on teaching other people on how to benefit from Salesforce platform and get a job in the Salesforce ecosystem. So I'm running a mastermind for students and not only within this domain. And my goal is to read at least 50 books per year. Last year I read 25 books. This year I was very much on my path to hitting my goal. I was reading one book a week through audiobook, but the problem was, the challenge that everything changed upside down, so I need to adapt. Within the physical domain, I've been training for Ironman triathlon, which is a big race. That's something I enjoy tremendously, but again, things have changed and I need to adapt to the new reality. And within emotional, it's the time with my family, with my son, and becoming a better parent, becoming a better husband, a better brother, a better son. That's what's important within my emotional domain. And finally, within my spiritual domain is my connection with myself. And I find meditation and mindfulness really grounds me and makes me happy. So that's kind of my vision for myself in the next 12 months. But a lot of things change on a daily basis. And how many of you, actually, let me ask a question to our participants, whoever is still here, how many of you have a journal? So write yes if you have if you're journaling, if you have a journal. So how many of you have a journal? Okay. Do we have any answers? Any thumbs ups? Yes, yes, yes.
Let's see if we have any yeses.
Not yet. Joshua.
Yeah, we have a yes here, me.
Yes, Trudy. Okay, Joshua, get a journal. I know who you are and I know where to find you. Get a journal and start journaling. This is so important. Coming back to my my vision for 12 months, I write it on a daily basis here. I reflect about my vision for myself on a daily basis, and it changes, it evolves constantly.
Okay, thank you so much, Boris, for that. And lastly, very briefly, can you please give some tips for future international students, people who have been accepted into university and were on their way to come to Canada, and now, boom, COVID-19 and everything goes upside down. Briefly, give them some tips and some strategies. Right now.
I think the word that I would use, be agile. I think being agile, similar to being adaptable, is very important, right? Information comes on a daily basis, right? So take what reflect on this and make a decision, right? So what we know is that universities will work, right? They will operate. And so universities are thinking about the ways they would deliver their programs, right? Online, hybrid, we don't know yet. Right. What we know is that universities are continuing to accept students, right? Issue offers. Yes, the borders are closed. We don't know when the borders will open. Yes, we know that students can start studying remotely. It will, they will not be penalized for doing that. And that's the ruling that Citizenship and Immigration Canada did. So I think stay positive, stay focused. I think that's very important. Your goal is to get a better future, right? And you believe that pursuing education in Canada is the right path to do so. I certainly believed in that when I made a decision to come to Canada. I certainly believe in this right now. So stay focused, stay on course. Things happen. Let me actually put one more thing into perspective. You're driving a car, right? You're driving a car, right? You want to get from your house to a shop, right? And then you exit your garage and you realize that the roads are closed. Well, you could choose to give up, but that's not a smart choice, right? You will find a way to get to the store because you need to get to the store. So I imagine that future international students have a vision for themselves, right? Vision for a brighter future. This is very important. And while you're in a driver's seat, yes, COVID, finances, things are coming, but it doesn't mean that you won't get to your destination. It just means that you need to reroute and get to your final destination. So stay focused.
Thank you so much, certainly, for that. Can you tell us, lastly and briefly, about your book and how our attendees on Zoom and on YouTube can get access to the book?
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Trudy, for asking. And again, once again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share with your audience what I know, what I believe in, what I'm passionate about. And if you enjoyed hearing me talk, I'm 100% sure that you will enjoy reading my book. It is available as an ebook as well as a paperback. For the attendees of this webinar, I'm offering this book as an ebook on the website just by going to bit.ly/startwritebook, where you can get a copy of my book sent to your email right away for $4.75. This is very much like a price of a latte, right? But on top of this, I have built a StartRight portal. This is a portal where I brought in all the resources, all the templates, all the books that I've read into one platform. And I charge $84 a year for that, to access this portal. But as an attendee of this webinar, you get access to that portal for free as a benefit for you attending this webinar. And finally, by going to this website and grabbing your copy of the book, I will offer a 30-minute free coaching session for everyone who goes through these links and get their copy of the book. So I urge you to get a copy of the book right here, right now. There is so much more you can learn about micro-credentials, about mind shifting, about balancing your life. I talk about 5 domains in life. I go much deeper in this book. I have coaching exercises. There is so much you can get from this book. So go to this website, get your copy. And if you don't like it, I will refund your money back to you and you can keep the book. So that's my promise to you.
Thank you so much, Boris. It's certainly been very good sharing with you. Thank you for the very empowering and lively session on Café New Canadians. Again, Café New Canadians is brought to you by New Canadians TV, a web and TV series. As I told you at the beginning, you can watch us on YouTube. You can watch us on Omni Television. And we'll continue to bring you this virtual series during this time and even beyond. You can follow us on our social media channels, New Canadians on Facebook, New Canadians on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Instagram. And don't forget that tomorrow, we are also on Telegram, by the way. The link is right on your screen. You can contact us and get in touch with us on Telegram. And we will continue to bring you this virtual series, but get all the information from us on our newsletter that comes out monthly. Please look out for that. And you can get all this information on our website on newcanadians.tv. And if you're watching us on Zoom tomorrow, we are going to be talking about living the lockdown life with emotional intelligence with Pedro Afif, a professional coach, tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 29th, April 2020. So be sure to join in that session. And if you're watching us on Zoom, please do stay behind and tell us how we are doing. You're going to fill in a very short survey to tell us what more we can offer you, what topics you would want us to talk about, what experts you'd want us to bring, what kind of conversations you would want us to bring to you. And again, my name is Gertrude, and thank you so much for watching Café New Canadians. And thank you so much, Boris, and everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you.